I'm known internationally for my Charles Dickens.
He was arrested for violating the Federal Mann Act, the White Slavery Act, interstate transport of girls for prostitution.
Wonderful eccentric, and he was supported by people who were devoted to him.
Another time I was ran out of a house with a shotgun. After 52 years, I got a lot of great stories, but I don't think some of them you want to hear. I mean, 52 years of the business. I'm 78 years old now.
He even made a book called The Bibliophile's Nightmare in only one copy, so that bibliophiles couldn't get a decent night's sleep.
Well, I think there's a great interest in rare books in San Francisco. I mean, we have a very, I think, diverse audience in San Francisco because we have both a highly educated audience and a lot of special interest groups, a lot of international groups that come to the fair and are interested in the fair. Our challenge as promoters is to start to interest a new audience, not, to go beyond the predictable group of people that will always suss out where the next book fair is going to be and get there if they can. And sometimes those aren't the people that the dealers want to see. We just try to get them there.
The logistics of putting on a fair this size, the San Francisco Fair is the physically largest book fair in the world. There are like somewhere 250, 280 exhibiting dealers here, and that's part of what we do. We take the trauma of the shipping and the customs out of the equation for the dealers. Our view when we started this very early on was, if you're a book dealer, you're here to sell books. You're not here to worry about customs. You're not here to do transportation. That's my problem. I'm not here to sell books. I'm here to make sure that the books arrive safe and sound, and that's what we do.
Booksellers, as we know them today, probably started to cohese, I suppose, in the middle 19th century. People like Bernard Quaritch and Manx Brothers. And then, I suppose, modern book collecting is becoming very different. I mean, the internet makes a difference, but people are collecting, or some people are collecting, very modern books.
You just never know. I've done hundreds of book fairs over my career. I've been bookselling for 30 years. I don't know, I've done 600, 700 book fairs, maybe more. And you never know what to expect. You hope to leave with some books that you bought and can do well with, and see some things you haven't had. You hope to get some new customers. A lot of us are very close in the trade. A lot of us have our best friends in the trade, so it's a chance to get together with people, and sometimes you leave just having a couple of great dinners and having a great time, and didn't make any money. But it's nice when it all works together.
Yes, I think this is one of the best of the fairs. It's the largest. I mean, it's over 200 dealers and from all over the world. It's really, it's a lot of fun, actually. You get to see an extraordinary assortment of books. You get to see many different dealers. It's just a wonderful time. It's like, I really enjoy them. Buy books, sell books.
One of the reasons you come to this is basically for the old boy and girl network. And that's the way you get a lot of your material. Everybody gets it that way.
We tend to get called by people in sort of Kensington and Surbiton and all over who are either moving or someone has died and there's an estate of books. That's really where we get our books. We don't have to buy, like most of the dealers here, from other members of the trade. And that's why there's a kind of interest when we set up. There's usually a great gang of dealers all buying from us because we get stuff fresh from the public, as it were.
I mean, the fairs are tough on books. You know, you buy something in pristine condition, you take it to a couple of fairs, and inevitably something, you know, happens.
Well, because of the number of dealers, I guess it attracts some of the best collectors in the region, or in the West Coast.
This is the big fair. This is the big time.
Yeah, and you can bring your best books and have a client for them. You know.
First fair I ever did was in Stillwater, Minnesota. That was a small time.
My first one was in Baltimore, which is where I'm from. That's also a small time.
Well, middle of the road. No, it's the best books. It's the best dealers. It's a great town. It's a lot of fun.
We have fun at the fairs. We love books. It takes a lot of work, but you know, that's part of it. If you have a passion for it, you don't have a problem with it.
We've bought a few things. It's been harder to buy than to sell, but that's been true in the current market. Most dealers aren't buying for stock very much.
What did you buy, or are you?
5 or 6 things, nothing more than $6,000 or $7,000, and as usual when I buy at a fair, I would have said 50% of them I know where they're going, and the other 50% will hope for the best. But as you sell stock, and we've sold 12 or 14 quite good things for something over $100,000, you've got to replace them. So the money's coming in, the money's going out again, but I think most dealers at the moment would rather have cash than books. And the fair is full of a lot of people who have more books than cash. So material is sticking. I think it's a very nervous market.
With war and the economy.
War and the economy and one thing or another. In general, when the market is nervous, things at the top end do better than things at the bottom end. Particularly interest rates are low at the moment. People with cash, you can either get 3% on it or you might buy some nice books, and nice books have certainly done a hell of a lot better than 3% over the last 5 or 10 years. In fact, so much better that it's in itself a worrying phenomenon. Market's been overheated a little, I think.
Give them a ticket. Yeah, and the ticket is mainly more than anything so that we count.
Gotcha.
We count how many people came. We're going to start selling tickets in just a minute as soon as we finish training everybody. Then we're going to hold it till we'll get you in the part way, and then we'll open the doors at 3. Okay? Thank you.
Book collectors in general, no, I actually find them completely normal, but for example, my assistant, you know, she's never seen them before. She sort of says, oh, a guy came by wanting books on X-rays, as if it was something extraordinary. But because I'm totally used to it. Somebody wants books on X-rays, somebody wants books on 1846 war against Mexico.
I'm here to get books on the Mexican War, 1846-48.
It's just, I accept the fact that that's the most important thing in their life, you know, and, well, collecting-wise anyway.
I'm looking for science books in particular, right? Optics books, right? I'm a collector in that area, right? And to see friends, too. A lot of the booksellers I've gotten to know.
So I'm completely at home with collectors. In fact, I used to be a collector. It's always useful because then you can identify with the mania.
We would like to welcome you to the 36th California International Antiquarian Bookfair, which is open now. Welcome.
And it's crowded, and it's very nice to be here because it's very different from the German fairs. It's easygoing and very nice atmosphere between the dealers and the customers are so interested here, and they want to look at everything, and they have many questions, and it's really fun. The first book fair I've been to in California was in '67.
Oh, really?
So you see, I'm a veteran.
This is our first time here.
Oh, really?
At this one, yeah. We've been members of the ABAA only about, well, it's almost exactly 2 years. We weren't in last time for the show here in San Francisco. It used to be a lot different. It used to be just all books. A gathering right next to us, they were kind of the pioneers of ephemera in the ABAA. And it's kind of interesting how things have kind of evolving, you know.
Yeah.
You know, instead, it's kind of interesting because, you know, people do love to see the real early, beautifully illustrated books, but, you know, this kind of stuff really grabs a lot of people. You know, it's really fun. Ephemera, books, and a floor show. So.
ABAA, good bunch. This is good fair. Won't say a word against them.
Book collectors in general.
Bastards. Needy bastards. No, good guys.
Yes, I was actually a cab driver in Sydney, and I'd paid off my cab, I'd paid off my house, and I was bored. And I used to go out and drive the cab for an hour or two, and then I'd have a few dollars in my pocket, and I'd see a bookshop, so I'd zip in there and spend what I'd just taken, and then go and earn some more to buy some more books. And eventually my house was full of books, and fortunately my wife loves books. And we said, well, you know, we're going to have to do something about this obsession. So we opened a bookshop, and that was 25 years ago.
Basically got me into book selling, a combination of welding class, calculus, proletarianization, and Leon Trotsky.
Since I was a child, I always liked to be surrounded by books, had that attraction, and when I needed a job at one point many years ago, I started to work in a bookshop.
Do you want the truth?
Yeah.
Well, I was a drug addict, and I went to Minnesota to recover in 1994, and I got sober, and I worked for a book dealer who was also sober, and just sort of chanced upon it. I write in my spare time, and I figured there was no better thing for a writer than to sell books. So that's the real story.
I was working full-time for the CIA, and I was also a full-time musician at night, and there was no happiness in the day job and no money in the evening job, and I started selling books, you know, just a little bit, and discovered that I liked it a lot, and also realized that it was a way for me to be happy and to be doing something I wanted to do and to make a living.
I can probably only name 5 other women who are involved in this business full-time on the level that I am, and none of them are within 15 years of me. So it's it's been an interesting experience. The books themselves are why I've stayed in it. And that's the only reason to do this. I mean, booksellers are not good business people. None of us, well, with a few notable exceptions, none of us are good with money. And that's not why we do this. It's craziness to think that just because you happen to love books and love working with them, that you're going to get rich doing it. With a very few exceptions, the majority of booksellers who make a significant amount of money doing this brought money into it. I can only think of a couple people who started out with no money and actually have it now. So it's a funny business to be in.
I was raised on a farm, and not too many people on my farm area read. So the library had a bus that came out to the rural areas, and this little school of mine that I went to, two-room school, why they stopped the bus there every month, and my mother took me over there, and I got books to read, and then that's how I got started. I'm still reading.
On Friday I was an engineer, and on Monday I was a bookseller. A little scary, and still is scary on occasion, even though it's 26 years.
Certain people have an instinct for books, for liking to look for them. They understand them in some sort of very basic way, which you can't even intellectualize. And a lot of the people here share that. I suppose it's a mania. When I was in college, I used to go into bookstores all the time, and one day one of them needed some help, and I never left. I don't know, I can never remember. Each one, the moment I have it, I ache to buy it, I want it desperately. The moment I own it, even if it's for a few seconds, that's enough. I could sell it the next minute, and I don't even remember it sometimes. I remember it, but I don't. It's not up in my mind. I'm looking forward to the next book at that point.
I've always sort of liked books, and I've bought them since my first book I bought, Rare Book, was when I was 12, and I spent £5 on it. It was a signed Tennyson, and I started trading books at university, buying books for myself, and then seeing there was a market in it, and driving up to Oxford and selling them to Blackwell's Rare Books. I had a BMW in my own flat at university, which was great. And I think I sold £90,000 worth in my last year at university. And it's always what I wanted to do.
I sort of fell into it not knowing what else I was going to do, really, which isn't the thing to say.
Always loved books, and I like to own the books I liked. And I remember when I was bar mitzvahed at 13, I asked everyone to get me gift certificates to bookstores. I got a job in my first bookstore when I was 15. When I moved to New York at the age of 19, I started working in a new bookstore, and then decided that I was kind of bored with working in new bookstores. I was interested in antique books. I'd started looking for books from my childhood. I actually started with the Gatsby.
I started off as a collector in the early 80s. Then I started buying and selling to fuel the collecting, and one thing led to another. I met my wife up in Ojai when I opened a bookstore in Ojai, California. We got married, and we continued as a bookseller.
Well, I've always loved books, and when I was in college, I took a rare book course at Cornell University with Don Eddy, who was the head of the rare book library, and from the very first day, he came in and he had laying on the table a King James Bible and a Shakespeare folio, and from that moment on, I was completely taken and loved it and studied rare books with him. And when I came time to graduate, I went to him and I said, I want to work with rare books, and explained to me about the rare book world and about the differences between auction houses and libraries and working for a rare bookseller. And I said, that's what I want to do. I want to work for a rare bookseller. So
it's my life. Not a job, it's fun.
I think it's a real passion. I think that people who are doing this for the most part at some point in their lives could have done something more lucrative and so forth, but not as interesting, and that didn't fuel that passion for them the way this does. I think a lot of people are willing to work harder than they would otherwise in order to be able to do this and get rewards out of it that are not just monetary.
favorite thing we've brought is this head of James Joyce, which is a bronze that we commissioned, which is taken directly from Joyce's death mask. If you take the death mask and you cast a bronze from it, you get something which is quite attractive. And poor Joyce, though he's just died, actually looks rather happy and peaceful. I started as a collector. I'm an academic by training, taught at university for 20 years, so I deal in the books that I actually know about, which is in a curious way both an advantage and a disadvantage. And I'm interested in things that are unique, that are kind of one-offs, that are inscribed or in some way unusual.
So if you have, I sold last year, again, The Adventures and Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes in jackets, the only known copies in jackets. Well, there were thousands and thousands of copies without jackets available, one known with. So how do you value something like that? That's, you know, it's, you could say it's an obsession, but that's the book that's really the closest to the original condition that you can find.
When we sell to a lot of collectors, say in gay literature, that are looking at kind of the underground history of gays, are people that are from both sides, the right and the left, are interested in the history of the Communist Party. We're one of the leading specialists in the history of the American Communist Party. If you want to know anything about them or the various splits like the Lovestonites or the Trotskyists or others, we're the come-to people.
What attracts people, I think what attracted me at first and what attracts most people at first is what's around them, and in this case it's mostly modern books and mostly literature because that's what I read more than other things.
No, I'm not a collector, only a trader. I like them, but it's my collection. No importance. I'm not obliged to keep them. I buy them, I take a pleasure of them, I enjoy them, and then I sell them.
I don't know, we just have a real broad interest. We're more into things that are almost more one-off things than books, because books are pretty much, everything is pretty well known. It's kind of the interest in the unknown, finding the unknown items that are really pretty exciting. So
people that are collectors are passionate about what they collect. They're passionate, and what a joy to deal with people that are passionate about this stuff. You never have to sell it. They know what they want, and I learn something new every day.
Did you start as a collector?
No, absolutely not. Didn't know. I'm an avid reader, always have been, but didn't know anything about rare books. Didn't know anything about science and medicine, which is our specialty. So it was a steep learning curve. Not only did I have to learn about rare books, which is unto itself an entire course of study, but also the subjects that we deal in. So it took a while too, and it was a lot of work, but as I say, it's just a joy. I also love books that deal with controversy. That's why I like Darwin, for instance, because for example, when Darwin published The Origin of the Species in 1859, the controversy that arose after that not only created a number of responses, both in support and against evolution, but the same debates that arose at that time are going on today and are still being written about. So somebody might be interested in collecting all the books dealing with the debate between creationists and evolutionists. And even now they're talking about, you know, you're either on one side or the other, or is there perhaps a middle? Anyway, as a subject matter, for instance, it's a wonderful thing to collect.
It becomes a passion, I think. Yeah, it's like, I hate to admit it, but for a lot of the time I was a collector, I was not rational about what I spend for books.
We stock Jane Austen first editions, we stock first editions of Alice in Wonderland, some first editions of James Joyce, and more modern authors, Graham Greene, Hemingway, and so on, up to Harry Potter and very, very new books become collectible very fast. And we just sold the very first Harry Potter book for $30,000. And that's only 4 or 5 years after it was published.
How much did you pay for it?
I'm not telling you that.
Fair question.
Worth a try.
99% of your friends won't know that that's of value. You can't put it on the wall like a Picasso and kind of impress your friends. A very small percentage will look at that and go, oh my God, there's a first edition of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So it has to be fueled by something else that's more personal.
I mean, this is Appianus Astronomical Caesarum, which is printed on his private press in 1544. I mean, it's intrinsically the most beautiful science book ever published. I mean, incredible feat, a very valuable book. This is from the Furstenberg Library, Donau Eschingen.
How much is that, for example?
Well, put it this way, I paid near $500,000 for it. And so the prices, depends when you ask me how desperate I am. I had to have it.
This is perhaps the most famous of modern first editions. This is F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby in the original dust jacket. Beautiful copy. It's perhaps the most famous dust jacket that was ever created. It's just beautiful. In fact, when they started to design the jacket, before Fitzgerald had even finished the book, and when he saw the beautiful image with the two eyes on the jacket, he actually wrote them into the book. So it's just extremely beautiful and very, very rare. This is William Faulkner's The Sound and the Fury. Again, another very famous dust jacket, very dramatic, very different than The Great Gatsby in terms of visually its style, but also very beautiful in its way.
This book is $65,000. The book itself is a Dove's Press, Wordsworth's Prelude on vellum. It's one of 10 copies printed on vellum. But the most interesting thing about this is the binding. This binding was specially commissioned by Major J.R. Abbey, who's one of the great English colour plate and binding collectors. He actually commissioned this binding to be done by Sangorski and Sutcliffe using the silversmith Leslie Durbin, who did 4 of the £1 coins. And this binding is made out of solid silver and gold. And very unusual, very, very heavy. The book itself, being printed on vellum, is heavy too. So this thing weighs a lot. It's very unusual, it's hallmarked everywhere it should be, on the top here, on the clasps. And it's a one-off. It's a very, very special, a very unique, very extravagant item.
There's one copy of Moby Dick, which is a beautiful copy, which is $85,000. Another copy just demonstrates what a different condition makes. And this is it's a very decent copy, $45,000. And this is what we really look for, is the copy that's a little bit of its sort of original freshness, left to it. This is a perfectly acceptable copy in every way. But this is the sort of thing we're interested in, really, in the end.
Are either inscribed, or is it just really?
No,
just
that would be a great find. That'd be a great find.
Are there very few inscribed?
Almost none. Almost none. No. I think it's fewer than a handful of institutions.
I've seen a lot more emphasis on signed books, and I think there's a lot more forged books.
This is a first edition copy of Melville's Moby Dick. Someone brought this into our shop wanting to know, is it really a first? Because it's missing its title page and it's a little bit hard to tell. And so we get looking at it and we open up the back of the book and we're kind of paging through and we see this. It's upside down on one of the rear flyleaves. Signed Moby Dicks are unheard of. They do not occur. If this were real, it would be a holy grail of literature. However, this is a forgery. Being from Utah, we can't go anywhere in the rare book world without being asked about Mark Hoffman. What we think, there was a receipt. He purchased this copy of Moby Dick from the Strand bookstore in New York without the title page because it was very much cheaper. And so we think what he was doing here is practicing his Herman Melville. He wanted to make sure on a copy that wasn't very expensive that his ink would look right, that the signature would look right. So we think he must have been practicing.
You're in New York. John Dick. America too. The Rocky Mountains. The Niagara Falls, if I remember. No, it's not the Niagara, it's Canada, yes. Saguenay. What is that? With Eskimo. Oh, yeah. With Eskimo too. Greenland. What is it? In Oceania, and so on.
And this is a 4-inch painting, a particularly familiar subject.
Kew Gardens, it's actually the first illustrated edition, and it's illustrated by Vanessa Bell, who used to do all the dust wrappers for Virginia Woolf's early novels. But this one is particular interest because it is signed by Virginia Woolf and Vanessa Bell. And although there's only 500 copies of these printed, they're not normally signed.
In this book, he's showing a great deal of his design vocabulary, pretty much elements that appear in many of his later works are all gathered and tried, often gathered and tried out here, although he developed it later on. The massive black initials where his secret formula for the ink used too much linseed oil, which creates these offsets on the opposite pages. Sometimes they're quite beautiful, and they're always an interesting part of the history of the book and the making of the book.
There was a great French children's illustrator called André L.A. and he began as a painter. And La Cité Beurre, which was a very important journal, a satirical journal, got L.A. to illustrate an issue called Les Plaisirs Parisiens. And these are all the watercolors and gouaches. You see the great difference between the gouache here and the lithographed reproduction, which turned it into a much darker, a much more bitter look. Although it certainly is a cynical look at Paris, there's a greater lightness in play to the watercolor. What a great painter he was, and how close in spirit to Bonnard and Vuillard and the Nabi. There's another transformation. This is a wonderful painting. My favorite painting here, there are two. I think this is a wonderful painting, reminiscent of Lautrec also. And there's another one I quite like. This lady in the loge is quite beautiful. And these gentlemen at the balcony. These are cards that were made for fortune telling. But they were made by a great book artist who was a lunatic. He was a medium, but he was also a great cynic. His name was Joseph Wachau. Anyway, these are quite wonderful cards.
There are 16 prints in the book. They were printed in double page. And it's when you get this combination, this relationship between Ilyas and Picasso, you get some of the finest books of the 20th century. These books are produced in very limited numbers. And you can see why he's not only the greatest in the 20th century in oils, but he's also one of the greatest in anything he lends himself to. Is just remarkable. And only Ilyas could get Picasso to do this caliber of work, or any of these artists to do this caliber of work. He was the only one that could, was enough of a taskmaster to demand their best. This is Miro, and you'll see it's the same caliber. And this is Ilyas' trademark, is this skin or vellum on the outside. And again, we see that the typographical place, this is a form of letterism. You can see that even the type is stunning. Is an illustration in itself. This is called Butterflies, but you can see the use of patterns. And again, we're focusing in on Pochois books, the stencil technique. because this was the best way to reproduce the original watercolors. In fact, it's such a fine way to reproduce the watercolors that they're often mistaken for original works of art as opposed to prints. It's like fireworks. You know, I mean, one turns the pages of these kinds of books, you know, and it's a very personal form of collecting. When you leave the book in its entirety, you know, you'll take this off the shelf, you'll have a nice light over your shoulder, and it's just like, you know, a celebration, but a very personal celebration.
This is a presentation copy from Evelyn Water Graham Greene, and you couldn't get much better than that. One Catholic to another.
And so in 1961, the night that Kennedy learned he'd won this overwhelming vote in the New Hampshire primary, the Kennedys were having a dinner party at their home in Georgetown, and Stuart Udall and his wife Lee were present. And just after Kennedy had gotten the phone call letting him know he'd won the New Hampshire primary, and essentially that meant that he would be elected as president, he signed this book to Lee Udall and gave it to her that night, and then became president. These come from Mr. Udall's estate. He's held on to them all these years, and so that's kind of a fun John F. Kennedy Association item.
It's the importance of being earnest. This is the trade edition, and this was inscribed to Will Rothenstein. And he was one of the people who didn't shun Wilde when Wilde ran into difficulty.
This is the 1482 Euclid, one of the great mathematical textbooks of the world. It's the first edition. It's a very, very important item. What's interesting about this particular copy is that it belonged to Lewis Carroll. It's $175,000.
Okay, this is the first English edition of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. It's got a big price on it, $40,000. And the reason behind that is because there was only 500 published, and most of them went to libraries, so they got stamps in or they've been well read. It's difficult to get one in pristine condition. This one is also signed by her. It's got an inscription.
Das Kapital is the foundational stone of the business plan of this store.
And as far as I know, we're the only guys to bring gay pulps, gay and lesbian pulp.
Which we sold a bunch.
Which we sold a fair
Usually we
amount.
sell it to university libraries because they...
But this time we broke down and decided we could offer it to the public.
We think this is Hunter Thompson's best book. This is a book he wrote on the 1972 presidential election, which he covered for Rolling Stone magazine. This is signed by Mr. Thompson. It's very rare signed. It's the only copy I've ever seen signed.
A 1776 Philadelphia edition of Common Sense.
Too bad you folks don't know anything.
It's been said that this is the book that started the American Revolution.
One of the store plans is to do eventually a catalog on the romance of genocide, a catalog of classic Western Americana. We do have a section on the white problem in America. They're not good neighbors. They tend to kill the natives, import slaves, and otherwise abuse people, and we have a section on that.
This copy is $50,000.
We actually sell a lot of books to people that actually just read them.
Oftentimes the jacket can have more appeal than the book itself, but as I said, we used to make a point of saying you can't judge a book by its contents. So, may I show you one?
I love buying books in a place like this because you can see the book. You can pick it up and feel it. I don't like the internet.
There's, a certain resistance to change, I think, within the trade.
The internet seems to be simultaneously the worst and the best thing to ever happen to the book business. And alongside of that, it has created an enormous explosion in fraud and theft issues of people learning how to resell stolen books on the internet. The proliferation of forgeries on auction sites has just become an epidemic.
eBay's the Wild West, isn't it? It's a frontier, and there's cowboys out there and all sorts of crazy people. I find it immensely entertaining. I don't use it much. But if you want half an hour of sheer amusement, leafing through things on eBay is absolutely wonderful.
What is the source of the amusement?
All the craziness, all the cowboys, all the Indians, all the running around and collaring them and roping them and pulling them in. It's absolutely wild. And there would appear to be almost no structures for keeping fraudsters at bay. And so they're out there. And I see things on eBay which are absolutely astounding. Books which are claimed to be signed by Vladimir Nabokov or signed by Hemingway. The person hasn't even made an attempt to make it look like the author's signature. It's wonderful. And it's a source of terrific amusement to almost anybody except the person who buys the book.
So this year is one of really the first years that we've reached out to the ABAA as an organization, and I think the overall feeling there have been mixed feelings. Perception is that the private auctions have something to hide. There are a number of different reasons for a private auction. One, to allow both the buyer and the seller to remain somewhat anonymous.
eBay is good on the one hand. On the other hand, there's a lot of fraud out there. They have what they call private auctions, where you can't contact the people bidding to explain to them that they're bidding on something that's not real.
The idea of a private auction raises concerns that somehow there's not something that's not above board.
Most people in the know understand what's what. Certain venues are breeding grounds for fraud.
I don't think it's more what there is to hide so much as people, I think there are some sellers and buyers who really like the option to remain somewhat anonymous from the world, and we just add that option there to do so.
No, eBay fraud, that's a different thing altogether. It's fraught with danger, eBay. Rule for eBay is you do not buy an inscribed book on eBay. I honestly believe that a great number of those are forgeries. I bought some myself and have returned them straight back. eBay has plenty of problems.
And then to end up, we're going to go for the
it's a good selling method. We use eBay. We do sell books on eBay, and we use our name to guarantee what we're selling, so people can buy with confidence, if you like. But there's definitely some rogue traders, and they're tough to shut down. But yeah, I think eBay you've got to be a bit careful with. But as long as the book's not inscribed, then there's no reason why the book can't be right. Not with decent photographs. There's no reason why you can work it out.
Yeah, that's right.
But signatures are difficult. It's a different thing. And there are certain people who have an awful lot of inscribed material.
The old adage in the book business was always know your book or know your bookseller. The internet hasn't changed that at all. It's more important than ever. And the ABA logo, the ABA brand does mean something, and you can buy from confidence from the members of the ABA, whether it's on eBay or not.
Discussions have been ranging from trust and safety issues at eBay and how we can make eBay a better marketplace for everyone.
Yeah, actually one thing that's strange is that sort of the fraud in the book business. I mean, maybe it's been around for a long time, but only recently has it become a problem. People signing books like does, allegedly, and selling them on eBay. It's even 3 or 4 years ago, people didn't really worry about it, and now you have customers who want letters of authenticity for signatures, and it's just.
But of course, what's really ironic is that
sends those.
Right. Yeah. Right.
He's the one who started that mess.
Yeah. Well, that's true. He's right. Exactly.
The truth is when you buy a book, the letter authenticity is worth the paper it's printed on. I mean, it's either the right signature or it's not, and you've got to know if you're dealing with the right kind of dealer. So, but it's become a problem.
And that's why he's not in the ABA. And you know, the book dealers who aren't in the ABA probably aren't in it for a reason. I think.
Yeah, I'd agree.
If the ABA represents anything to me, it's a haven for collectors where they know they can find valuable and valid information and reputable dealings.
We're really not here to compete at all. We're here to learn and to enable the book selling community in general to look at eBay as another opportunity, an additional selling channel for their rare and antiquarian items. And I think a lot of them know that it is and use that in their as an additional part of their everyday business.
The internet was highly embraced by most used bookstores when it first came up because it was a means to sell the books, but actually it ended up being the downfall of used bookstores, where people used to go in and search through a used bookstore for maybe what they were looking for, and then accidentally they would find something else of interest. Now they just simply go on the internet and bring up whatever title they're looking for, and pretty much every copy that's available in the world pops up, and there's no reason to really go to a used bookstore anymore.
Thank you for attending the book fair.
Are you videotaping that for security reasons?
I don't know anymore. I've been standing for 3 days and I've been out very late for 3 nights. I don't even know how it makes me anymore.
Well, the best thing is that Harper and I fell in love.
It was really amazing.
Spending all this time together gave us an opportunity.
We had these latent feelings for years, and it just all sort of erupted.
Latex feelings. We had a pretty good fair, for this economy. Can't complain. Today's theme was not complaining. So
right. We said we weren't going to say anything negative or anything disingenuous.
Okay. Can I just ask, what is the documentary going to be used for? I mean, do we know yet, or blackmail? Yeah. That's good.
3 exhibitors who did well. Booksellers will drink anything, even cheap champagne.
The packing up process is what every dealer looks forward to at the end of these shows. You pack to get ready for the show, you pack when you're done, you pack when you get back. I mean, you do more time packing and unpacking than you do selling books. There's an art in this. You could work the entire show, and if you pack incorrectly at the end of the show, you could lose all your profits. Because you could break the binding on a book. It's the difference sometimes between $10,000 and $50,000 or $100,000 a book. So in the last 15 minutes of packing up, you could blow your whole show.
Well, I understand that it's possible to make entertaining film about most things. In fact, probably all things. Is it just me, or is a movie about bookselling bound to be a little dry? Come on, I've been doing these fairs for nearly 10 years, and I'm telling you, I'm often bored silly. So it'll be interesting to see how you deal with that.
Good luck editing this mess.
Yeah. How one could ever make a film that was interesting about booksellers? I'll be fascinated.
It'll be on Bravo.
I don't think so. I think it'll be on the crawler of CNN. It'll be on the crawler of Bravo. A documentary film made about booksellers, but not shown on Bravo.
Okay, you'll edit it, I guess. He's going to kill me.
Prize in his collection.
Well, I guess if it's going on late night. I think this is just something that is kind of fun, You want to keep going? There we go. Oops.
Oh my goodness.
Pretty wild.
That's Antiquarian, alright.
Are you from London?
No.
But the best part is seeing it be over. And wishing everyone a bon voyage. And nobody died. Yeah, well, That's always a criteria for a good event if nobody dies.
I was going to have you record the most famous bookseller joke, which Lou Weinstein, I think, invented, which explains the entire economics of this fair. 2 booksellers were marooned by chance on a desert island. A month later, they were both millionaires. That's the book business.
Always want to buy only the left hand and not the right hand, and you have to explain that it doesn't work that way, and they come together.
Yeah. I think that's probably the most horrific of the stories. All of the others we'd like to probably stay quiet about.
Hello, I'm the manager of the San Francisco Internet. Oh, God.
You ready inside?
All right. That's roughly 100 100 Dickens per Harry Potter first edition, which is
you know, we do have rights as citizens in this country, so you can't really strip search everyone that goes to a book fair, nor should you.
No. That's right, I found out before I wait. Yeah. Very, very scarce book. It's the only copy I've ever seen in a dust jacket had a heavily restored dust jacket. Very scarce.
I'll either read a nice, serious, thick work of history, and then I alternate it with whatever cheap thriller at the airport has a swastika on it, or an aircraft carrier.
So what would you like to talk about?
So, we wish you luck with the film.
Where do you want me to look? Do you want me to look in the actual camera?
People come to you with their particular enthusiasms, and if there's something that clicks, maybe you become a victim of a vicarious enthusiasm and go and learn the subject so that you can sell them books.
This particular book is Venus au Furore, and I think it's one of his great books. And when it's done like this, as a series of prints.
The jacket is worth about 90% of the value of the book. Somebody once said the jacket is the soul of the book.
It's an effort to engage the antiquarian and rare bookselling community to help us learn more about how to sell antiquarian and rare books.
It's uniform prices. When you used to a book fair like this, you can go around as a dealer and a collector, and you'll find a huge range of prices.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because people would price a book what they thought it was worth. Now, if you don't know what the book's worth, you just go on the internet and you go, well, that guy has it at $400, that guy at $500, $550, and you can price yourself the cheapest, the most expensive, whatever you want to do.
But there's not many. I mean, because all rock stars. I mean, you know, for instance, I know a couple of the Pistols, and the Pistols guitar player will sign any white Les Paul that you give him if you give him $100. Sorry, Steve. Bang goes that market. But you did well enough.
One of the things the internet is beginning to show is that so-called rare books aren't all that rare.
This guy's a real lunatic. He's a great guy.
I won't say there haven't been many financial crises. When you have a passion for buying books the way we do, there's bound to be many financial crises.
And it's hugely more valuable for that as a dust jacket, then it's a huge bonus. And books during World War II kind of fall into a gray area. As so many things in life do.
I was born into it. I've done it all my life.
Choked on his own vomit was the story that you know, from drinking too much, but I'm not sure. I know what the real truth is.
Will we ever know?
Yeah. It's a good fair, good weather. Pleasant country.
We all want the same thing. We want books that we can buy and sell very fast and make a profit on. The kind we don't want are the ones that we're going to have for the next 16 years and regret. Unfortunately, we'll probably buy some of both at this fair.
We have to get books in fine condition. That's what we like to do because we're a terrible salesman, and they sell themselves.
When I go to a fair like this, you know, it's very exciting. I get really hyped, and so I spend like all day looking at books. And there is a mania about it, but it's fun. It's better than smoking crack.
I personally collect sheet music, and the sheet music has to be of a medical or scientific nature. For instance, we've got the mumps. I mean, you gotta love something like that.
Is there a line to check into?
You want to check that?
Yeah, that's right. Oh,